morning, viewers. Thank you very much. Welcome to Punchline Africa, Matsanga Africa Perspective, broadcasting all the way from the London headquarters to Nairobi in Kenya and across the continent of Africa, and in Europe, the entire universe, in China, in Ukraine, in Russia, in America. Good morning in South, wherever you are, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on the region where you are on the universe. This show is Matsanga Africa Perspective. Today we shall start it with a style to put a takeaway on the conflict of Ethiopia stroke Tigray. We want to see what we can do, the challenges, the obstacles that the mediators might face in the conflict. This morning, therefore, I address this conflict as a Pan-African. As a Pan-African who has taken a long study of conflicts across the continent of Africa. How did we get where we are today is the most important thing that we want to look at, and I want to look at in the next 15 minutes to 20 minutes to find out the causes, the root causes, the challenges, the obstacles, what can bring about a breakthrough. I will be very candid in my discussion to bring out the obstacles, the major obstacles that are hindering peace from returning in that great country. As you know very well, Ethiopia was a country with a GDP that was very impressive in the Africa and the East African, the Horn and the IGAD and the African Union. Ethiopia also hosts our African organization, African Union organization, and several other international agencies that matter to Africa. This country has been peaceful. This country has seen a GDP grow up. This country has been very innovative. This country has been a country of hope, a country from Mengistu Haile Mariam to a country of hope, a country for all the people of Ethiopia to live together, a country where peace was as good as peace, where you could leave your telephone on the streets of Ethiopia and you find it the following morning. Today, this country has been reduced to a conflict that has divided the ethnicity through ethnicity. Someone has visited the ethnicity problem that Africa has, ignited a problem that has seen the two once brothers fighting each other within the same country. The suffering of the people of Tigray and the people of Ethiopia in general is what I want to look at. Is there hope? The two African Union mediators, former President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta of Kenya and the former President Olusegun Obasanjo, General, have been tasked with a very important role to play in bringing about a peaceful transition, a peaceful Ethiopia. Will they manage? Will they be able to do it? Are they able? What are the obstacles? What are the challenges? That is what we want to look at when I finish this presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, Matsanga Africa Perspective seeks to look at the challenges. One of the most important challenges that the Ethiopian Tigray conflict faces is a humanitarian challenge. The people on both sides need humanitarian aid. They need food. The people need food, access to food, medicine, schools, clothes, shelter, water. And as you know, the entire region of the Horn of Africa and the Great Lakes region is under the drought conditions that usually come under visitors in conditions of this nature. Africa is endowed with many things that include the climate, the weather, the water, but we have not been able to marry both the the dry season and the cold season, the water and the dryness that comes. We misuse most of these assets, and therefore drought, the weather pattern. We cut down trees, we export these trees for timber and charcoal in the Middle East, and we have found ourselves with the weather pattern changing and the climate changing, and therefore there is drought in the region. But coming back to the humanitarian obstacle, the people, the world is calling upon both sides. Today I will speak on both sides. I will stand by both sides because I want to be neutral. It hurts me because both of the two people, they have been my friends. They are all my friends. I've been with them for the last 42 to 45 years. I've known Zenawi, I've known all the people in Ethiopia, most of them. I've known all of them, those who are in Tigray. We have been together in solidarity meetings. We have been together in uniting the people of Africa. I believe one day it will come to pass. I believe one day that peace will return and the people of Ethiopia will be united under one Ethiopia. The humanitarian catastrophe therefore presents a big challenge today. Mediators, how do we get a ceasefire that can lead to a humanitarian delivery of goods into the areas which are most needed? Medicines, hospitals are dry. Everybody is crying for someone and for something. They are crying for help. The children are dying. The women are dying. The old, the young are being mistreated. The death rate in those areas where war is taking place has risen. What can the mediators do? The first thing the mediators must do is to cease fire, to obtain a cessation of hostilities agreement that will allow the food to freely, without any interruption, to reach the people who dearly need this food. And to that end, I call upon all both the warring parties to bring about a cessation of hostilities agreement, to sign it, honor it, so that the food can reach the entire region where the war is going on. The second point is the lack of resources to man the peace process. The international community must pump in quite a lot of finances, material, both material and financial muscle, in order to bring about the peaceful transition in Ethiopia. They need money. We should not do like what we have done to the conflict that is in Sudan, South Sudan, where we left the people, the warring parties, without money to master and to control and to guide the peace process. The third point, where obstacles are the external darker forces. The external darker forces on both sides have created what we call a stalemate that we see today. I will be very candid on this program to mention the darker forces that have actually caused us all the trouble that we have in today's Ethiopia. One of the outstanding darker forces that the mediators must tackle is the question of Eritrea. What role does Eritrea play in the conflict of Tigray and Ethiopia? If we don't sort out, if we don't talk to the people who arm these people, if we don't talk to the people who have invaded these people, then we cannot have a peace process going on in well and being concluded. I advise, therefore, that the mediators can look for the peace process, can have the peace process going on very well, if they start talking to the people who are arming both sides. On the side of Tigray, there are people who are arming them, and therefore we call upon them also to come out clean and state what they want and what their interests are. On the side of Ethiopia, there are also people arming them. Turkey is one of the countries arming Ethiopia, United Arab Emirates. Egypt plays a crucial part in this conflict, and some other Western powers that are hidden behind Egypt that are causing the mayhem that we see. So mediators must be prepared to face the truth and tell the truth that the people of Ethiopia are tired on both sides. We are crying of a humanitarian catastrophe which is taking place. But there are people outside here who are selling their arms, who are sending arms into Ethiopia to kill people. These are the countries we must start talking to, and we must not leave any stone unturned until we get to the bottom of it. Ladies and gentlemen, there is another disturbing factor that will hamper the peace process in Ethiopia. Accountability is one of the issues that need if a peace process is to be hammered. But accountability with accusations does not augur well for a peace process. The International Criminal Court, that is the ICC, decided to go in to investigate crimes against humanity and label out and single out and stand out by condemning sides. From my experience as a mediator, a negotiator, a peace conflict resolution expert, that type of strategy can work very, very counterproductive to the peace process. We should wait until there's a cessation of ceasefire, and then we can bring in and investigate who did what and where was it done. It was very, very uncalled for the ICC to begin investigations and to begin publishing the reports which would hamper the two sides sitting on table. Those are the challenges, ladies and gentlemen. Miriam, back in the studios in Nairobi, I want to tell you that those are the few challenges of those 4 points. If we are not careful, if we don't handle them, if we don't solve them, if we don't talk to the people who are arming both sides first, it could be a headache for the mediators. I yield the microphone and I wait for our pure discussion on the floor. Thank you very much. This is Dr. David Matsanga on the map, Matsanga Africa Perspective, all the way from London headquarters. Thank you very much. Back to you, Miriam, as we go to recess and we start the discussion. Thank you. God bless you. I wish the people of Ethiopia, I wish the mediators a peaceful discussion in South Africa on Saturday. Thank you.
All right, we shall be right back.
The conflict in Democratic Republic of Congo is fueled by external forces backed by internal traitor groups and internal and African countries that have interests in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Yes.
Any expert will tell you that there is a constant move that every time when a conflict dies in Congo,
yes,
another conflict is being manufactured in another center, in another position of the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Which are the countries that have interests that are constantly fueling the conflict there?
First of all, the colonial countries
Yes.
have interest in Congo. Belgium, France, the French, and then now we have the Americans who have come on board who want minerals. Then we have regional powerhouses.
Yes.
Uganda, Rwanda, they have interests.
Yeah.
They want to see.
What is the interest all about? Is it about minerals? Is it about what exactly is it about?
Majorly, the interest is minerals.
Yes.
The people, you know, say that the Congo produces almost everything that Africa That's the world wants. From
Yes.
coltan, from platinum, from every type of diamonds, gold, timber.
Mhm.
You don't forget that. And then timber is one charcoal.
Yeah.
We have a lot of charcoal going through Kismayo.
Yeah.
We have a lot of charcoal going through, being sold. A bag of charcoal in Saudi Arabia costs between $400 to $800.
A
So-
sack of charcoal.
Yes, a sack of charcoal. I've done my research. So there is business going on there, and we are killing our forests. We are destroying our environment, and also going with the ugly sins where there is a conflict, there is a gain.
Yes.
Yes, the people like the French have that notion, that character, that motto embedded in their foreign policy.
And
They come to destabilize Africa and gain out of Africa.
now I'm looking at an engagement that went on between the president, Felix Tshisekedi, and the Rwandan president, Kagame. And Tshisekedi seems to be blaming Kagame for what is happening on the eastern part of DRC, where the M23 army is, the rebel. And that's where Kenya is going.
There is a problem here.
Yes.
You might not know the foreign policy of the two countries, Rwanda and Uganda.
Yes.
Be careful.
Mm-hmm.
They can quarrel, but they are friends.
Who, Rwanda and Uganda?
Yes.
Yes.
One person commands the other.
Yes.
And be careful. The Kenyan people must be very, very careful, extremely careful.
Uh-huh.
When choosing how to go in, they could become targets.
Because the Kenyans have gone in through the eastern part to where mostly the M23 are. They've sent special forces there. And it looks like that's where they're going to concentrate.
Special forces of which nature?
I think it's the Army Special Forces.
Okay.
Yes, they've gone into the eastern side. I think they will be now part of the force that will be dealing with M23. And I know from Tsikedi's statement, it looks like Rwanda is supporting M23. So likelihood of us having strained relations between Rwanda and Kenya are very likely, because should the two forces engage there, we will have a very delicate situation.
Let's ask one question.
Yes.
When the M23 strike, where do they go?
Mm-hmm. They go back to Rwanda.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I am not going to name it. You can name it.
Yes.
But when M23 strikes, it is the whole question is like the question of Al-Shabaab.
Yes.
When Al-Shabaab strikes us, where do they go?
Mm-hmm.
Where does Al-Shabaab get their uniforms?
Yes.
I hope your viewers and the listeners should get this point.
Yes.
Because we are in for peace. We are not looking for a war.
Yeah.
We are not aggravating a situation.
Mm-hmm.
We are not encouraging a war in the region. Mm-hmm. We are encouraging dialogue.
Yes.
If you are encouraging dialogue, then you don't go in with guns. Yes. You must go in with peace and alternatives and put them on table. Mm-hmm. We haven't reached the point of not talking. We have to continue talking, and we have to begin talking. In this one, the Kenyan forces are going in without asking questions. Yes. Who is arming M23? Yes. And for me, if I'm asked for advice, yes, I can write 200 pages. Yes. And I tell you, the answer still comes to the answers I'm going to give you now. Yes. It's the same countries that are friendly to Kenya that are arming M23.
So now, what is the likelihood that we will create bad relations between Kenya and now Rwanda? Because obviously there's going to be an engagement between the forces.
We are being dragged into a war.
Yeah.
That we should have taken time to study. Kenya should have studied the pattern.
Yes.
Of development.
Yeah.
In 1998 and 2002, 2003, you remember what happened in Kisangani?
Yes.
Do you remember what happened in Kisangani?
But remind me.
Uganda and Kenya turned, Uganda and Rwanda turned the guns on each other.
Yes. In a foreign country.
Two thieves have gone on the ground to steal.
Yes.
Then they fight in the house where they are stealing property.
Yes.
Didn't you hear that fight?
Yes, yes.
Look, watch my lips.
Yes.
watch my lips. Tanzanian troops have suffered there already.
In the DRC?
Yes. In DRC, you had Tanzanian peacekeepers were killed, very many of them.
Yes.
By M23.
Yes.
South African troops have suffered.
South African troops?
We have South African troops there.
Yes.
You know, you have seen how many troops we have in that area.
Yes.
Everybody has tried to take troops there.
Yes.
I agree with the Kenyan troops going into DRC for question of creating infrastructure to enable the area to change its attitude towards producing rebels to production that could help the region.
Yes.
That's acceptable.
Yes.
That's acceptable. But when you are going to say you are quelling a rebellion of the magnitude of M23,
yes,
please take a step back and listen to this voice.
Yes.
Let's first name the people who fund this M23. Let's talk to them first. Because M23 did not come from the moon.
Yes.
You don't talk to them. You are going now with a confrontation on M23.
Yeah.
But why don't we talk to the people who give M23 the guns and say let's do backroom diplomacy?
Yes.
Instead of going for a military strategy, let's take a redemption strategy. A redemption strategy created a peaceful environment in Colombia. A redemption strategy took a peaceful environment in northern Uganda.
Yes.
A redemption strategy brought a peaceful environment between Britain and the Irish army. Why are these foreign countries prohibiting us to do a redemption strategy? Because they want the minerals. They know very well that if we do a redemption strategy among the countries, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, and Uganda, and the Congo itself, we sit on table.
Yes.
We say, I am the one funding the rebels, and from today I will not fund. And if we are open about that, then the redemption strategy spirit comes in of reconciliation, truth-telling, restitution, healing process that leads to. But at the moment, we are going in for a military solution, which would multiply and produce more factions.
All right.
Our television station gives people to explain their problems, their difficulties, their information. If they need more information, we shall refer them to where they should get it.
We embrace dialogue, dialogue, and dialogue.
We want to exchange views, go deeper, advise where possible. Tell the world what is going on. Why is it that tactics have changed from removing governments militarily to removing governments through regime change tactics?
The issues here sometimes are elections in Africa. We as Kenyans or we as Africans view it as elections, but the foreign powers are viewing it as an entry strategy to enter into our affairs and get control of our resources and on the way we actually rule ourselves.
At the end of the day, I think it's just the greed of power that is bringing on. And welcome back. The topic we are looking at right now, which Dr. Matsanga already made the initial submissions there earlier, is the obstacles and challenges in the Ethiopia Tigray peace process. But before we get back into that, let me just bring us up to date with the latest headlines from Kenya. The Daily Nation, why Ruto is fighting to control parliament. That is the main headline. The butcher from Ravine trial starts in US of Kenyan nurse accused of murders. TSC in talks to recruit 58,000 new teachers. The Star newspaper, how governors spent billions on wrong priorities. Development ignored while salaries and allowances skyrocketed. And then just to the side there, Museveni apologizes to Ruto and Kenyans over his son's invasion tweets. And then just below there, Nudin Haji calls for integrity test for MPs tasked with oversight. The Standard newspaper, Azimio in a spin after Ruto's lunch meeting. That is the main headline on page 6. Museveni, I'm sorry for my son's bad manners. The stories on page 4. And counties failed to collect 216 billion revenue. That is on page 10. And South Africa sets peace meeting over Ethiopian war. And that is what we are looking at this morning. So that is what we have on the front pages of the leading newspaper. So I think we'll just get back into our conversation this morning. And both sides in the 2-year-long civil war in the northern Ethiopia have now agreed to attend peace talks this weekend in South Africa, following an invitation by the African Union. Tigrayan rebels confirmed they will take part after the Addis Ababa government confirmed its participation earlier on Wednesday. They have, however, raised some questions about the invited participants, observers, guarantors, and the role of the international community. Fighting in Tigray state resumed in August, breaking a 5-month humanitarian truce. The upsurge has also brought in troops from neighboring Eritrea, who are backing the Ethiopian government army. The talks will include as mediators former President of Nigeria and Kenya, Olusegun Obasanjo, and President Uhuru Kenyatta. Now, Tigray is just one of the 10 regional states located in northern Ethiopia, sharing a border with Eritrea to the north and south to the west, and Sudan to the west. Prior to the current Abiy's accession to power in 2018, the state dominated politics at the national level, with most of Ethiopia's ruling coalition comprised of leaders from the Tigray People's Liberation Front. In 2018, Abiy's national election win signaled the transfer of power from the decades-long rule of the Tigrayan People Liberation Front, TPLF. While in power, the TPLF had implemented a series of political reforms that marginalized other ethnic groups and consolidated the central government. And in September 2020, following multiple delays in parliamentary elections and the extension of Abiy's presidential term, the Tigray State Council defied the federal government and held regional elections in which TPLF candidates won in majority of the seats. And that is just a brief background of the current conflict being experienced in Ethiopia, and we shall continue looking at much of that as we continue with this conversation. Doc, back to you. You're muted.
It's still very dark up here. Thank you very much, Miriam. As I said earlier, the situation in Ethiopia calls for all of us to be prepared as Africans and the international community to make sure that Ethiopia walks out of the war. Ethiopia was a country that had a GDP that everybody wanted to go to. Ethiopia was a country where security was very, 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 very good, that you could sleep outside without anybody harming you. It is sad that we have seen this African country going down to the dogs while we watch and sit and talk and wait. President Ruto today has arrived in Addis Ababa to make sure that they expand the bilateral negotiations and bilateral arrangements, plus to expand business and to make sure to cultivate ways of having Ethiopia to come on table. Miriam, looking at both letters of invitation and then letters both of replies, you can see that there is something that is not, I don't know whether you have seen both letters, or the ones that the Ethiopians replied and the ones that the Tigrayans replied. You can see there is a lot of work needed to push the leadership on both sides to attend that summit on Saturday. The Tigrayan letter gives a lot of hanging statements saying we are not invited, we are not talked to about this. It tells you that the leader might not come, might not appear, but it takes a lot of time for people, and that is why I brought out this subject as a challenge. Trust, ego, and trust could be one of the main obstacles, also the 4 points that I have already opened up and talked to you about. That there is that ego. If you read the letter of, I don't know, Miriam, whether Jeff can give it to you there in Nairobi, you can see the last parts of the letter. And I know my Tigrayan people, I have worked with them for a long time, over 42 years. I understand when they say, they write very good things at the top, then later on say, but that is all what Ethiopian intelligence, most of the media, they allow you on a small thing on paper. You might not be accredited to enter the African Union. If there is any doubt, they will even tell you to fly back to your capital in Nairobi or in Kampala to get clarification, then return and attend the conference, Miriam. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, my panel today is composed of Tony Diallo, all the way from Tanzania, the Jamhuri Republic of Tanzania. I can see you have gone African, pure, and you have brought the Masai Shuka behind you. Tony, good morning in Tanzania, Dar es Salaam.
Good morning, Dr. Matsanga. I'm pleased to be here.
Thank you very much. Next is our guest from Lagos, Dr. Olusoji Ajado from Lagos, Nigeria. Dr. Olusoji is a lecturer with the School of Afrocentric Studies, and he lectures, is one of the few people standing on a Pan-African ticket. We have been crying for the help for the people of Tigray. He has been on the lobby group for the Tigrayan people. But today we want to cry for all sides. We want a peaceful settlement. We want people, corridors to be open. Dr. Olusoji Ajado, good morning from Lagos.
Yes, good morning, sir. How are you, sir? Well done for great effort. We appreciate you for this leadership. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Olusoji from Lagos. And on in town down where Miriam is none other than Tawish Olesesana, our own veteran journalist, anchor, investigative journalist, a man who follows my footsteps. But every time he wants to catch one footstep, he takes one back, then he comes and catches the other one. We have all been friends for almost 14 years. Good morning, Tawish.
Good morning indeed to you, Dr. David Matsanga, and good morning to Miriam Ogutu, as well as, of course, the colleague correspondents from Africa, and of course, the viewers watching our program in Kenya, Africa, and the rest of the world. Dr. Matsanga, I'm very happy and delighted to be part of this program this morning. Good morning, Dr. Matsanga. I
think you listened to my first takeaway. The 4 reasons are very clear. In Nairobi, Kenya, we have none other than Miriam Ogutu. Miriam always holds my fort when I'm away. Thank you very much for doing so until we shall always be together. And together we stand, and Africa will rise and shine again, Miriam. Good morning in Nairobi, Miriam.
Very good morning to you. Good morning to our panelists, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to our viewers from wherever they're watching us from today.
Thank you very much. I can see, Dr. Olusoji, you want to rush to the class. You want to make your opening remarks, then I'll remain with Tony, or we shall stay. Were you clapping, or you wanted to talk something, Dr. Olusoji?
No. I'm appreciating you. I'm with you. I don't have a class this morning. I'm with you this morning.
Therefore, we shall go in order on how we started. But Tony, in Dar es Salaam, in Tanzania, tomorrow you will be celebrating Saturday or you will be celebrating a national day in Dodoma. Bring us up to date. How are people feeling about the conflicts on the continent of Africa, especially Ethiopians who are rising in big numbers in your country to seek refuge? You have seen very many of them, Ethiopians, Eritreans, end up in Tanzania, on their way to South Africa, on their way to other countries, or remain in Tanzania itself. What is your view?
Dr. Masanga, there is a Kiswahili saying that goes like, ndugu wakigombana chukua jembe ukalime, wakipatana chukua kapu kavune. What it means literally is when siblings are fighting, go into the farm and plant your crops. Don't do anything. When they make up, go back home and go back to the farm and harvest. Now, this is something that we cannot do in Ethiopia, Eritrea. Tanzania has always stood for unity, umoja. Nyerere was one of the founding fathers of the AU, and he really preached about Africa being one. Now, we know the organization, the AU, is based in Ethiopia, and here we are seeing Ethiopia breaking down into regions. It's sad. Tanzanians feel sad. Tanzanians feel saddened because we see tens of people coming through our borders to try to find refuge. Unfortunately, in the current situation, we have not been welcoming them as we used to welcome refugees in the past. We have actually been persecuting them, putting them in jail or taking them back. But going back to the Kiswahili saying, would you stand aside and see your brothers or sisters fighting? And what has happened in Tigray? Thousands of people have died. Hundreds of thousands have been displaced. I worked in Afghanistan, I worked in South Sudan, and I've seen firsthand the effect of war on the ordinary people. You do not settle, you do not feel secure enough to go into a farm and plant crops. That's how you get famine. People are not going and planting their crops. There is no security for children to go to school, for teachers to teach. So education services go by the wayside. There is no security for health services to be provided. I saw in places where war has been raging on in Afghanistan for 20 years plus, a very good hospital reduced to rubble. The services that were provided there no longer existing. I was in South Sudan with a colleague, a medical doctor, who was taking me to see his village. We went there and the village was no longer in existence. He got confused. He was running around saying, my mother's house was here. There was a school here. He was showing me places and we could slowly find bricks or remnants of structures, but it had been overgrown with grass and shrubs and trees on the time that the conflict had been going on. I am saddened today about Tigray and Ethiopia, as I was saddened that day seeing my friend feel confused. We cannot stand on the side of this conflict and pretend like we would say in Kiswahili, it is brothers and sisters fighting, we should keep out of it. We have to raise our voices. And going now to why are we here? Why are we here where a country which is divided into 10 regional governments, suddenly one regional government wants out of the union? Why are we here? Perhaps we see on the surface that it is the disagreement between the regional government and the national government on the conduct of elections, on the postponement of national elections, etc., etc. That might be the immediate cause that is in our eyes, but the underlying causes. What is the role of regional power brokers? Who is giving them the support? If people are starving, people are not able to get food, and yet there is money to buy arms. There is money to fight, to fund the soldiers, give them uniforms, guns, food. Where is that coming from? It must be coming from somewhere. Somebody has an interest in destabilizing our brothers, where African Union is headquarters, so that they can't be one. And those interests must be economical. They are powers that would benefit, or they are already benefiting, and they want to use the conflict as a way to get their objectives. But I would defer to you to perhaps give us a little bit of history on how Ethiopia was ruled by a dictatorship of Mengistu Haile Mariam, and then it was overturned by now forces that are fighting in Eritrea. And perhaps they had an interest because for 30 years they were able to control government affairs in the whole of Ethiopia. Tigray only represents 6% of the population. Ethiopia is huge, it's more than 100 million people. Why is it so hot? And if these issues are not being addressed, I agree entirely with you, what you're saying about the ability for that mediation conference in South Africa to succeed would be limited, because the underlying issues are not being addressed. We only want to, perhaps AU wants to address the immediate cause, which is the disagreement between the regional government and national government and the factors behind it. But perhaps this will not solve the problem. It may postpone the war for a bit, but the strong powers that are in it. I was looking at the constitution, the composition of let's say Eritrea and Tigray. Which tribes are there? There is a very strong ethnic factor in this war. Eritrea is 50% Tigrania, 30% Tigray. And you go to Tigray, the Tigrayans speak Tigrania language, which is the dominant language in Eritrea. Eritrea must have a role there. If we are not addressing that role in Eritrea, the Tigray conflict will not abate, and Ethiopia will continue to be at war with itself, which is a pity. Okay. Because the organization, yeah.
You have raised the point that I made much earlier in my opening speech, that for a conflict to end, you must address those who arm the people. In this case, Eritrea has come in to help Ethiopia to finish Tigray. So if we go to South Africa without coming out to talk to Eritrea, I want to be very candid and tell you the truth here in East Africa and the Horn of Africa, where Miriam is and Tawish. There is a problem there. Eritrea houses Al-Shabaab. Yes. When they kill us, they run to somewhere. We know it. They get their uniforms. They sell their charcoal through the ports of Asmara, which gives them the uniforms that you see them dressed with Saudi Arabian uniform. If you go, surely you are being killed by a country where people who come to kill you have uniforms that come from a country. And we continue to give this country the food, the luxury for them to enjoy. You know, the ambassadors are here telling us things are all right. Yet they have armed people. Miriam, they arm people. They allow the sale of arms. They allow the sale of uniforms for Al-Shabaab. Where does this uniform pass through? It must pass through one of the ports, not at least Mogadishu or Kismayo, which is guarded very well by the Kenyans, and Sector 1, which is guarded by the Ugandans and other troops in Mogadishu. It must be passing through Asmara. So for me, I'm candid and I'm honest. If we want to solve the problem of Ethiopia, we must talk to Eritrea. We must tell Eritrea, oh, stop it from going to bomb Tigray. That's my submission. Dr. Olusegun Ajao in Nigeria, Lagos, the commercial city of a great country that got independent 62 years ago on Saturday. Hit the microphone.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for that analysis you made. The last speaker mentioned. I love that. And the point is that we in the ethnic composition of Eritrea, we have Tigrans there, and also ethnic composition of Tigran people. We have people they are just cross-border relationship. So for me, I think the first thing we can do is that we should try to get Eritrea out of Tigray. That's the first thing we have to get them to do. Let them get out of that, because that's what is trending the attack on the Tigray people. So why is it Eritreans are still on the territory of the Tigrans? That's the first thing we have to get them. Once they can move them out. And again, I'm very concerned because the African Union is not imposing sanction on Eritrea for participating in the war in Ethiopia. Why is it that African Union cannot act? And why is it that IGAD in that zone cannot force Eritrea to move out of that territory? Because for me, from my own analysis, I see that Eritrea is like the fuel that's keeping the fire of the conflict burning. So the first thing is that we can get Eritrea out of that country, out of Tigray. Then these people in Tigray and Addis, they are brothers and sisters. They will sort themselves out. So I think the major issue is that get the Eritreans out. And my question to all these panelists here is that why is it that IGAD and African Union cannot persuade or force Eritrean forces out of Tigray? That's the first thing for peace process to be meaningful there. All right, let me stop at this point.
There you are. We have a question, Miriam. Maybe perhaps Miriam can answer us. Why? Let's bring in Tawish across, and then we see Gemeshicha BS has joined us, and we see Tawish. Dr. Alisoju Ajao has posed the question: why has African Union, IGAD, United Nations watched while Eritrea is interfering in the affairs of Ethiopia? It has actually entered and it has mobilized troops. The Americans have told us the troops have been mobilized across and they are going into Tigray. Why is African Union very reluctant, very eager? Why are they not condemning? Why are they not coming? Because if you don't get the root cause, I wrote today on my Twitter that you must, if you want to destroy the jigger, you don't cut off the whole head. You look for the whole root cause. Don't destroy the entire head, leg, because there is a jigger. Let's go and look for the root cause where the jigger is. Remove all those white eggs. The jigger will not spread again. So why are we not removing the jigger? One of the jiggers that has caused chaos in the whole of Africa, when Shabab is concerned, Al-Shabaab is concerned, now Tigray is concerned, is Eritrea. Tawish.
Thank you so much, Dr. David Matsanga, and thank you for colleague correspondents and panelists, of course, for the submissions that you've made. Indeed, Dr. Matsanga, I can't agree more with what my fellow panelists has indeed mentioned about the participation and the critical role, negatively so, being played by Eritrea in as far as the war and the fighting in Ethiopia is concerned. And so one will be forgiven really to conclude that perhaps the African Union and the leadership therein is in bed perhaps with the leadership in Eritrea, and in this case, President Isaias Afwerki. Because how come that we cannot see the African Union really coming out to censure Eritrea for participating in the war, or actually ganging up with the Ethiopia government to suppress the voice and the concerns being raised by the people, the TPLF. I think, Dr. Matsanga, this is a very, very genuine concern and legitimate for that matter. But moving forward, Dr. Matsanga, the question we're asking ourselves, how has it become so difficult really to find a long-lasting truce or rather solution for this problem in Ethiopia? One, I think, is one of the, some of the reasons you have highlighted yourself, and of course, the previous speakers who have spoken ahead of me. It's about the grandstanding by those the key players and participants in this war, and in this case, of course, the leadership in the TPLF, and of course the leadership of the government of Ethiopia. Second, I believe also is this question of the involvement of Eritrea, in which case some of us as the observers and analysts are viewing as though it is an illegal and illegitimate involvement, one which has not been sanctioned or allowed or permitted by any relevant organs in the region, Dr. Matsanga. So the participation of Eritrea in itself has also continues rather to fuel the situation, or rather to worsen the situation in as far as this war is concerned. Secondly, Dr. Matsanga, also, I think there should have been a complete a ceasefire in as far as this fighting is concerned, because when you're talking about people sitting together and having a mediation or talks to bring to an end the conflict between the warring parties, in this case between Ethiopia and the Tigrayans, I think, Dr. Matsanga, there should have been a complete or an absolute ceasefire in as far as this fighting is concerned. But when you get another party or another group in this fight, in this war, really continuing to arm their people, continue to invade the other people's perceived territory, then by the end of the day, you are likely going to get a long-lasting solution in this case. Secondly, another point, Dr. Matsanga, is the issue of the humanitarian aid. One of the panelists here, I think, from Tanzania, has ably put it that we cannot be talking about having a ceasefire or a solution to a crisis, and in this case, a war that has seen thousands of people being killed and hundreds of thousands others being displaced, at a time when we cannot even be able to allow even humanitarian aid to reach the most affected, adversely affected regions. Say, for example, even food, Dr. Matsanga, the medical supplies, if it is cut, children not being able to go even to school, then it is not possible for us to sit down on a negotiating table to have any meaningful discussions if we cannot be able to allow even this humanitarian aid to reach to these, affected areas. So, Dr. Matsanga, I suppose, is a myriad of issues.
We seem to have lost a Tawish somehow. I think we have a network problem. Miriam, are we still there?
Yes, we're there.
Okay, thank you very much. Tawish has raised quite a number, like what my brother in Tanzania raised, and then the Dr. Olusajo asked a question. Let me hear from the guy himself from Ethiopia, from Oromo, Martin Oromo. How are you, sir? Good morning. Good afternoon in Nairobi.
Yeah, good afternoon, Dr. Matsanga. Again, nice to be on Zoom with you again. I hope you can hear me.
Sometimes I hear you very well. I hear you very well, and the medium has tuned it very nicely that we can hear very well from the headquarters in Nairobi.
Yeah, I've also joined from Nairobi. I think I've mentioned this before. I'm also based in Nairobi since I have run away from my country because of security matter, which is ongoing. I'm here now to listen to you, but Dr. Matsanga, I have a very critical question now. Hope you can elaborate on. The question is the mediation is now resumed again, and both sides have agreed to go to South Africa, whereby we didn't expect it's going to happen. But nevertheless, it's okay that it is happening. But there are a lot of actors who are left out again in this mediation. Where do you think this mediation is going? Do you think the mediation between Ethiopia, between the federal state or federal government of Ethiopia and the Tigray region solve the issue in Ethiopia. In this regard, even the Eritreans are also again threatening that they were not consulted, and other parties are also not consulted, and they are complaining about this mediation, which is scheduled to take place in South Africa. So, where do you see the negotiation will go? That's my question.
As a man who is like a giraffe, I am a giraffe. I am an African giraffe from Tanzania. I see very far. And Miriam, that's why I brought this topic. Because one of the problems in Africa that we make, we run when we have not started running. How do you solve a problem? We solve a problem by telling Bashir. We solved the Uganda problem by telling Bashir, Miriam. We went and said, Mr. Bashir, stop arming the LRA. Is that clear? We flew into Khartoum and said, sir, you give arms to the Lord Resistance Army. You must stop it. We are now on table. We want peace to succeed. We want talks to succeed. We want to regain our integrity as Ugandans. Stop arming the LRA. Equally, on the other side, President Museveni came out clearly, with his English and writing in black and white, and told us he supports the peace agreement and he would stop arming the SPLA against Khartoum. Miriam and the panel and Oromo, a friend of mine, Tawish, Ojao, and Tony. The peace process went on smoothly. We were able to hammer 5 agreements. Even if the last signature was not available, we had already got what we wanted. We had exchanged the prisoners. We had brought back all the people, over 100,000 people abducted, returned to Uganda. We had done what we call a peace process, a healing process, a redemption strategy. Uganda today is peaceful. There is no more war at all emanating from that region. The same happens to the IRA, the Irish army fighting the British army. They ceased the fire. They declared that we have been getting guns from Libya. The Libyan Muammar Gaddafi and the guns from Dublin, which is Ireland, that was supporting us. The Irish government and the government in Dublin, the British government talked to people in Dublin to say, please, from today onwards, stop arming the Irish Republican Army. And that is where peace can be got. I saw this coming. That's why I brought this topic today, obstacles, challenges. What are the challenges? One of the challenges is what Mr. Muriti Oromo has just said. Some of the parties are already, these are the parties that are going to tear down the peace agreement. These are the parties that are going to fuel the peace process, the fight. These are the parties. And you are telling me that you have left. Ethiopia should not even be asked whether we should go for peace or not. It should be told, we are putting you under sanctions. In fact, to get that war ended, deal with Ethiopia, with Eritrea. That will be the end. It is one of the major suppliers of arms, stubbornness, ego, and the methods of genocide against the people of Tigray. Isaias Afwerki has never been a good man. And as I've told you, Miriam, those are the challenges. Back to you in the headquarters. If you have any more questions, we then start the second round and final assessment. What are the obstacles? What more challenges, solutions? We want now to come to solutions. Questions have been asked. Dr. Sgao has asked questions. Marita Aromo has asked questions. Tawish has put a presentation. What more questions?
I have a few questions before we get to
Yes, thank you.
If you can allow, and indeed, just listening through the conversation, and of course we've talked about this a lot, and truly, the role of Eritrea as far as this conflict is concerned is really critical as far as funding the conflict there in Ethiopia. But also, when you look at the foundation of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's rule when he came into power, and him trying to consolidate and create the vision he had, an ethnically harmonious and unified Ethiopia. And initially, he appeared to be doing some changes to try to address the issue of divisive politics that had been experienced in the country when TPLF dominated the ruling coalition. And in his quest to do that, he ended up making the TPLF feel sidelined. So the passive aggressiveness started at that point. So as much as these other issues are there, but also currently how the leadership of Ethiopia is constituted, it appears that Abiy Ahmed started on a very faulty ground as far as bringing the country together is concerned, and he seems to have failed on that. But perhaps my question that I want to pose to Tony, Ethiopian problem seems to be, it is a political problem, and Abiy Ahmed is approaching it with a military solution. Should he change that now? Or maybe will the mediation, maybe bring that to a different route?
I am not sure the political or military answers all our questions. The thing is, this conflict is complicated. It's complicated by economic factors. If we look into the history, I think the TPLF used to control government, used to control the affairs. And now the Prime Minister has tried to balance that, and maybe that is not going too well. Secondly, I think I can speak as a Tanzanian, but I feel we have our brother from Oromo who can shed light, make us understand as Africans and Pan-Africanists what is the real issue, and how, or is there a way he thinks if this and this and this happens, we can stop the fighting? Because right now the priority for me would be a ceasefire. We have to have corridors of tranquility where humanitarian services can be provided, where people can feel secure to go to school if need be, to go to a clinic to be treated, to receive food, to start going back to the farm. However, peacemakers have to continue the dialogue, regardless of whether it has been possible to bring all the power players onto the table. Let us start with those who are there, and then bring in the others. Peace is a process. It's not something that happens in one day. It would have been nice for AU and the United Nations to say, let us sanction every player who's bringing arms into Ethiopia. That will stop the fighting. But is this a realistic solution? We should keep praying and pushing for it.
All right, very well, thank you. Thank Thank you so much for that. So it's multifaceted. There's never like a particular answer.
Can I attempt?
Okay.
Can I attempt to answer Miriam's question? Thank you very much, Tony. You have decided to stand on an island, and I said I will go back to the island of Pemba and stand there and say, wait, let me go into the water and swim in the water. The truth here, Miriam, is there are two things of resolving the war. We either go in militarily and finish it, we close.
So which side?
Whichever.
Militarily to achieve what?
To vanquish. To finish.
To finish the Tigrayan side?
The war. No, to finish the war if they want. I am saying there are two ways. I was bringing two ways of finishing this conflict. None of the side is willing to finish the other. They are all fighting. The Tigrayan people are fighting. The Ethiopians are also fighting too. They can't really take the capital of Mekele. Mekele, sorry. They can't really take the capital. The Tigrayan also can't really take over Addis Ababa. So this is where the conflict is. We can go on and go on and go on and go on. You know, it might not end.
So it's a standoff. So until that point, Doc, it proves that maybe the military approach is not really working.
I was coming to give you a credit on that. That the military solution, if there is no fly zone, if there is no buffer zone, if there is no cessation of hostilities, the military solution can go on and there will be no peace. So it is difficult to finish it militarily because none of the side is willing to overrun. Ethiopian army is not capable of overrunning Mekele and take it back and say this is our city. This is our Ethiopia. It's impossible. It's going to be impossible. From now onward, it is impossible. They can't. So that's why the mediators have a task. This is not a conflict like the one of northern Uganda where the rebels had not captured any territory. Here the rebels have captured the territory. They have not rebels, the government in Tigray has territory, has taken over their territory. They were a provisional government and they still remain a government. Now they are there. You have to dislodge them, which is impossible. So the only other solution is to go to who is giving the arms to each of these sides. Miriam, that's why I brought you that double-pronged approach. Let's go back and visit Turkey. Let's visit Turkey. Let's visit France. Let's visit United States of America. Let's visit Egypt. Who are the people arming both sides? Before we go to South Africa, let's start talking to those sides like we did talk to Bashir. And Bashir stopped any supply of arms to the LRA and the money and the logistics and the food. Therefore, they came under the influence of the peace process. You see that? But at the moment now, there is nobody who is talking to Turkey to tell Turkey, stop arming, giving the drones to the Ethiopian government that are killing the people of Tigray. Nobody. Have we summoned the Turkish ambassador? Why are we not telling the Turkey? Turkey has come out openly. Russia has now arrived on the scene. That is another catalog of mixture of cocktail of this guy of difficulties.
And Doc, while we do appreciate indeed the role that external forces are playing as far as fueling this conflict is concerned, but there is also a deep level of internal problem within itself. I think was it one of our guests there?
No, Mr. Muriti.
Who said
Mr. Muriti can answer that internal problem.
Ethiopia is fighting within itself. I think that is the major problem we're having here. So these other factors, they are important and indeed critical as far as this conflict is concerned, because what really brought Ethiopia to where they are today, let me just read something very quickly. In September 2020, following multiple delays in parliamentary elections and the extension of Abiy's presidential term, the Tigray State Council defied the federal government and held regional elections in which TPLF candidates won a majority of seats. In advance of the elections, Tigray leaders warned that intervention from the federal government will be considered a declaration of the war. And that brings us to how Ethiopia's democracy is, the federalism. I don't know if there are proper defined parameters between states and the national government, and who was overstepping what, and should they restructure how even they govern within Ethiopia, within its federal states. It has 10 states, and maybe is it about time Ethiopia relooked at restructuring itself and just look at how it is today, because this will be a problem even if they're able to mediate today and move forward. If this is not really addressed, there seems to be serious and critical issues as far as its internal even boundaries are concerned. The federal states feel they have some level of autonomy that the national government should not interfere, and the national government feels we are the national government and we do have a right. So where do we draw the line, and should they relook at some of these issues now as a country?
I think, Miriam, you brought in something which is deeper in analysis. Look at all the countries where the emperor or generals were in command. Yugoslavia, Field Marshal Tito had controlled Yugoslavia under an umbrella of several ethnic groups. Emperor Haile Selassie had managed to coin and put Ethiopia together. You know, Uganda, Kabaka Mutesa, had put Uganda in one good basket, where the British arrived and found us still writing and exporting exchanging and selling our products. We had our own letters, Tony. We were writing and the British could not tell us how to write. But the order was disrupted later. And those countries, if you look at Central African Republic, the same. Look at Congo, the same. Countries where leaders have died, the former leaders who have been killed forcibly have had turmoil, apart from Tanzania, because the Tanzanian, apart from not Tanzania, there are several countries on the African continent. The former leaders were killed. Baba Tafawa Balewa. Look at what has happened in in Lagos. Olusegun will tell you, since the death of Baba Balewa, Nigeria has fallen to pieces and continue to fall to pieces. Up to today, people are agitating for freedom. The Biafrans are saying, oh no, we want to go away. Have you seen? It looks like this country, Ethiopia, was put under Emperor Haile Selassie. Through God's grace, it was never colonized by any country from Europe. Mengistu Haile Mariam and the soldiers came and killed this man, even buried him in a very shallow grave. Nobody has remembered Emperor Haile Selassie. Yet he was one of the founding fathers of freedom on this continent, the freedom we are talking about today. Now see, Since that time, the spirits and the ghosts, the spirits of these great leaders brought back a war in Europe. Field Marshal Tito, Yugoslavia went to war. My brother Tony Narado and others, we were reporting from Serbia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, the massacre in Bosnia. You saw warlords being taken for trial for genocide. Have you seen the problem? The same in Ethiopia. Magisto Hai Mariam would be standing trial today. We have not got accountability, Miriam. We have not got accountability. Come closer to South Sudan. The leader who fought for a united Sudan was General Garang. He was killed. When General Garang died in an airplane crash, has the South Sudan got peace? No. Because these are God-chosen leaders. So you have brought a point there. Let's look at it. Why is it that most of the countries where the kings were, emperors were, Central African Republic, Emperor Bokin Jean Bokassa, he had controlled Central African Republic, although he was eating people's tongues. You know, he could call for good tongues of all people like Miriam and me, eat the tongue, bring it. He was a cannibal. But then he had kept Central African Republic united. Look at Cameroon. President Ahidjo, when he was overthrown, taken away by this man Paul Biya and others, Cameroon was united. Kwame Nkrumah, look at that. Kwame Nkrumah was overthrown by General Achampong, his own brother-in-law. Ghana was never stable. Ghana has just stabilized now. All these states in Africa, if you look at them, and the states in Europe, compare Yugoslavia, the same problem happens. Why? Morit Aromo, answer Miriam's question. You are from Ethiopia. What's the problem? Muruti?
Yes, Dr. Matsanga and Tony and Miriam, it's really great to be among you to discuss the issues that is mattering to us dearly. As you know, Mr. Tony alluded earlier, I just want to, just repeat what he said. The Ethiopian case is very complicated. And it is going to be, difficult to solve by only engaging few warring parties who are, leading the conflict in Ethiopia. Let me just say this again. Miriam just elaborated, asked a good question and tried to touch on the issues that has really been the case when it comes to the conflict in Ethiopia. When Abiy came to power in 2018, he promised a good reform. He promised a lot of, hope that Ethiopia's long-lasting issues, conflicts will be resolved through fair election, by holding election, regional election, and also, the national government to constitute the national government in that case. So I think the problem is the problem started, as just Miriam said, when Abiy Ahmed postponed election, a constitutional mandated election. he postponed that election in order to consolidate his power without free and fair election. Like, for example, that sham election, which was held to make Abiy a prime minister of Ethiopia, was held during COVID, and he used the same reason to postpone, but he did the election in the same condition, in the without consulting the opposition parties, without involving the opposition parties who were vying for regional for regional government. For example, if you take Oromia region, there was no opposition parties who participated in Oromia region. It is only the government participated in the election and won itself. So that has made a lot of grievances from the opposition parties in Oromia region, and the youth who brought change to the who brought change to Ethiopia at that time decide to arm themselves to counterattack the government itself. They started fighting. Like, for example, Oromo Liberation Army is now fighting within Oromia region because the opposition parties were not given a chance to participate in the election that was held in Oromia region. So, as Miriam earlier stated, the Tigray region went ahead and held the election, and they made their own decision that TPLF can be their government. So that was not accepted by the federal government. There are a lot of issues now, complicating issues that is affecting Ethiopia simply because the government of Abiy Ahmed did not consult the regional, the autonomy of the regional governments of that time. He just wants to, I think he wanted to consolidate the central power. He wanted to change the structures without due consultation of regional actors. I think that would be the major issue that is creating and being a reason for the conflict in Ethiopia. That's what I think. Maybe I'll come back to it and elaborate more. Thank you.
I just want to ask him a quick question, if I may.
Go ahead.
Yes. We have disagreements in Tanzania where the ruling party maybe wins all the seats in one place and the opposition parties say, no, you didn't involve us. We were marginalized. We weren't given a level playing field. But you don't see Tanzania youth or a local army go and fight the government. Why is it so easy in Ethiopia? When there is disagreement about political issues, readily people go into war. And we are saying in this panel, part of it is because there is somebody who can supply the arms. You cannot fight with arms if you don't have arms. You will fight the political fight instead of fighting the military fight. Perhaps you can help us there.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Tony, again for the question. If I may try to answer the question. When Abiy came to power, he came through a peaceful, protests. And, there was almost a revolution that has been taking place in Ethiopia to force the EPRDF, the previous government, to hand over power to, to Abiy. And then Abiy promised a change. I mean, when Abiy came to power, he promised us that he will, consult the regional, the concern of the regional. In the first place, Ethiopia is a federal state. Ethiopia is a federal state. It's not. It's not like a country that is similar to Tanzania. There are regional bodies who are asking for even more autonomy. And Ethiopia is kind of an empire, not a country actually. Ethiopia is kind of an empire whereby there is a lot of interest, different interests, and aspiration for becoming autonomous or governance of self-determination of peoples in Ethiopia. So I think the case of raising arms comes when the central government tries to control power by force. You know, when Abiy came to power, as I said earlier and repeatedly, he promised a democratic transitions, a democratic governance, even of the regional at the regional level. He's supposed to even democratize more democratization of the federal state of that country, but he started consolidating power by creating a unitary view of political narration. That is what made young people from Oromia region and Tigray region to arm themselves to defend the region. It's like the Oromia region and the Tigray region are trying to defend themselves from the consolidation of power into the central, in the hand of the central government. So raising arms comes when the government or the federal government is trying to use force to to impose its own will on regions. That's what I think is the case. If I might try to answer, yeah.
Thank you so much. And perhaps, Tony, if we can understand how even TPLF was formed in the mid-1970s. It was a very small group of militiamen founded by the Tigray People Liberation Front with a left-wing nationalistic ideology. They vowed to fight for the rights of Tigrayans because they felt they were marginalized, the inequalities that they were experiencing. And at that time, they were relatively very small, about 5% of the population in Ethiopia. And they felt they had been marginalized by the central government. And that has always advanced, their need to be heard, their need to be included. And so that's why when they toppled the government in 1991 and came into power, they wanted to do things differently. But there are a couple of other things that they did that were not really right. But the formation of this, I think that is the difference. You said in Tanzania, elections will happen, the opposition will feel perhaps it didn't go well, but people are able to just move on and go on about their lives and wait for another election cycle. And that is because the way Tanzania was founded, Mwalimu Nyerere and the other founding members there in Tanzania, I think they did set Tanzania up for a very solid, society where people care. People cared. Everybody perhaps felt included in the government and in the country. So there's never been a need for any community to feel they have to fight. They have to put up a fight for them to be heard. We see the fight with the politicians and all that, but it never comes down to communities, or it's never ethnically motivated. They will fight for democracies. I hear now they want the constitution to be relooked at, and I think President Suluhu has promised after the next elections, perhaps the country can start looking at the process of changing the constitution. But it is based on that. It never comes down to ethnic balkanization, and that is what I think is a huge problem in Africa that we have with the many communities we have and the different languages we speak, that we are supposed to be celebrating and supposed to be our strength that brings us together, our diversity, which is supposed to be our beauty as different countries, that unfortunately becomes something that we use as a weapon to fight the other communities. But for Tanzanians, you guys are very lucky. That is not what we see as far as even your politics is concerned. So that is the difference. So the TPLF was formed out of the necessity and the need they felt. They were not being heard, their needs were not being met by the central government, so they regrouped and, you know, they started agitating to be heard and you know, and to be included. So that's why you see it's a very combative, because they've always had to fight to feel that they're being heard and they're represented in the greater Ethiopia, if I'm not wrong. Yes. So anyway, as we conclude, I saw our friend from Nigeria. He's left the conversation again. I see Doc. All right. So maybe your last submission, Tony, as we conclude at this show this afternoon.
I feel we should go back to the point that Dr. Matsanga raised, our friend Juan raised. You have also alluded to it. That if I look at Britain and the United States, I want to talk about how weapons can have a profound effect. There is the number of people dying in the USA because of guns is really high. And if you take Britain, where they have outlawed guns, the number of people dying from gun-related violence is low. Why? Mostly it is knife crime, small weapons. There is a limit to what you can do with a knife or a club. So coming to Ethiopia, Tigray, Eritrea if you want, but the whole of Ethiopia, the fact that they are arms, they are guns which can kill tens of people in one round, magnifies the effect tremendously. In Tanzania, I don't want to make you believe that we are not violent. We are, but the government is strong. As soon as you have people running around and saying democracy, we have to protest, we go burn houses. There have been instances where houses are burned, cars are burned, they loot. But the government comes in and quells that violence. And because the opposition, the people who are running that, do not have access to weapons, they are not able to exert as much as an effect as they would if they had. So what I'm seeing in Tigray, the fact that they have arms, and if they are coming from Eritrea, they are coming from somewhere else. Maybe they are coming from the Middle East. Those arms are the reason why we see maybe 10,000 people killed, maybe 300,000 people displaced, 2 million who are in famine. The impact is much bigger. So we have to go back to the issue of, number one, disarming, stopping the source of arms coming into Ethiopia. And number two, either a AU or UN mediated ceasefire that is enforced before we can come to an effective negotiation on the table.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tony. Murti, I see Olesuji is back. We are giving our final sentiments here. Are you hopeful over these new talks that are expected to start taking place in South Africa over the weekend?
Is it okay?
Is it Onola or
myself? Okay, thank you very much. I'm hopeful. Is it Muti? Who is going? Muti, you can.
Just go ahead, and then Muti will come, and then we will end.
Okay, well, I'm hopeful anyway. As I said, it's just like there's too much of talk of the conflict in Ethiopia has been overanalyzed, little action been taken. But I'm very hopeful that something tangible is going to come out of that. And especially EU now is standing up to responsibility. So I'm very hopeful that something is going to come out. And I heard that the siege on the Tigray has been partially lifted. And by weekend, they're going to lift the siege completely in Tigray. So I can see a new thing coming on board. And again, Tigray people, as I understand, they are not thinking of seceding or creating a republic from Ethiopia. They still believe in Ethiopia, united Ethiopia. All they want is an inclusive government in which all ethnic groups will be part of the government. That's what they want. So I see a kind of a new peace coming to Ethiopia from this meeting coming up on this weekend. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. So you're saying there has been a partial lifting, but we've had such reports before, but when you go to the ground, the information that we get from there is that that is really not true. Still, there are places where aid cannot be accessed and things like that. So hopefully, that is the actual situation on the ground there. But thank you so much for that, Murti. Are you hopeful? Initially, these talks they really didn't happen because both sides were not willing to sit on the table. TPLF had insisted, no, we can't. We're not going to sit down with the government of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, and the government also had insisted on the same. But it appears the long-drawn war, I think probably both sides are now even exhausted, and this military solution is not really getting the country anywhere and finding any solutions. So do you think with goodwill, this process, peace talks, might actually bring a lasting solution to Ethiopia this time?
Yeah, thank you, Mariam. That is really a good question. I don't have hope in this again because it's early even to put our hope on the negotiation. From the start, the Tigray regional government has put it under caution that some necessary steps were not taken. However, they are still willing to participate. And the issue of allowing all the actors to participate in the negotiation, in the discussion, is crucial. So in this regard, I'm not sure whether it will be successful, but let us be positive and optimistic that it will take place and maybe give a step for another negotiation. Otherwise, it is still early. It is still early, or it is still unmature to say it's going to yield fruit. Simply because, as I've earlier stated, there are serious and potential actors who are not consulted about this thing. So let's see. Let's us hope that they will start the talk.
Do you have confidence in now our former president Uhuru Kenyatta being included in that? Because the TPLF had really wanted Kenya to be part of the mediating process there, something that at that time Ethiopian government was not agreeing. So with the presence of our former president, will that make a difference?
Yes. In that regard, yes, I definitely believe that will, make some kind of pressure. But however, from the information we have, former Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta was not even consulted about this, South African perceived, negotiations. He was caught unaware of the process. The information we have is that he wasn't consulted, and even the Tigray region government are also saying they were not they were not consulted. So, but the involvement of former Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta to be invited to be part of the mediators can bring some kind of relief to both the warring party. I believe so. But as I said again and again, is there a chance for other warring parties like Oromo Liberation Army Is the Oromo Liberation Army consulted? Is there opposition parties who are really part of the conflict within Ethiopia? If it is to solve Ethiopian crisis from the roots, then there has to be a wider consultation, a wider participation of the concerned parties, like I said, Oromo Liberation Army are taking over 16% of Oromia as we speak. Mm-hmm. There is war raging in Oromia region as well. So are they consulted? We don't know. Okay. So if there is a wider consultation and involvement of the warring parties, the stakeholders, all the stakeholders, then I will have hope that the negotiation that is going to start in South Africa will yield some kind of fruit.
Okay, we can only keep hope alive, I think, at this point, and just hope for the best, even as the mediation talks there are set to start over in the weekend. Doctor, I see you back.
Yes, it is very, very late. I woke up very early down here in the command center. So as I was reading some notes.
You went into meditation, okay. So we are
concluding I went into meditation. But thank you very much. All of you.
It's a good meditation.
It's necessary. It's important sometimes. But conclude for us.
I was listening while I was in meditation. So okay. I did listen. It is very early morning this side. It is only 10 o'clock GMT time, and woke up very early to prepare. I wake up at 4 all the time. I'm used to that timing of East African time. So I'm always by 4 o'clock. I don't find me still sleeping. 4 a.m. So thank you very much, all of you. Miriam, thank you very much. Tony, thank you. Aromo, thank you, Olusoji. Let me come to the points, the obstacles, the challenges, the 4 of them that I said at the beginning. Maybe most of you who were not there at the beginning, there were 4. The mediators are going to face those obstacles. Those ones, one you have seen by the end of this debate, we still, Miriam, the same obstacle still remains. I read the letter of the Tigrayans replying to the African Union letter. You could see that their leader might not be there, but there might be a delegation of people, because in the end they summarized it. They summarized it in saying we were not consulted on a number of things. So the leader might not be there. And if the leader is not there, then the peace process. Also, South Africa has got a problem of detaining leaders who are rebels. It's most likely that the Tigrayans seem to have. I would like to advise the mediators to shift this peace process. Please shift it to Tanzania. Your Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta and your people who are listening to me, shift the talks to Tanzania as a neutral country in the conflict. You see what happened to Riek Machar by IGAD. So what happened to Riek Machar? Miriam, you saw Riek Machar went to South Africa for peace talks. He never came back. They actually literally put him under house arrest.
To protect him.
Yes. Well, we can even say he was abducted. So I am being honest that I know my Tigrayan people very well. I've been with them for a long time. I don't think their leader will fly to South Africa. We need to do a lot of panel beating. So for me, I would advise the mediators, African Union, President Obasanjo, the President Uhuru Kenyatta, to seek a neutral ground for peace talks. And one of the neutral grounds where you can have a neutral government that does not again prohibit the rebels from getting out. South Africa has never produced any peaceful. Show me one peaceful thing that was done in South Africa and it has stayed long. Show me. Sure. Miriam, sure. Let's go back to one peace process. The one of Madagascar. We had to shift it to another country. That's how Chisano and ourselves, we managed to get a peace process going. The peace process of South Sudan, it ended. Congo, DRC Congo, you have seen, even if during Mandela times, Mandela wanted to favor Mobutu Sese Seko side, you know, and Mugabe had to jump out and take the troops in Congo. It cannot, it has never, South Africa has never solved any problem. The one of Renamo, Frelimo versus Renamo, you saw Machel ended up losing his life. Even his plane, 15 minutes after they had gone in the air, it went, disappeared. Nobody talks about Samora Machel's death. We mourn the great guy who went, disappeared, they killed him. So South Africa has got that bad element of hosting peace process. I think the mediators and the African Union should find another neutral country that is stable. Stability. There are power cuts in South Africa now. You can't hold peace process for a long time. The entire place is full of power cuts. So the best country now for which is stable for peace process with a large conference center, like the one in Moshi, the Moshi conference. I was there in 1978. I want to visit Moshi again and enjoy the fruits of the chaga around the hills. So Your Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta, please, wherever you are, listen to our views as a mediator and tell African Union to shift this. Tanzania, again, South Africa prohibits so many people from going in there. Ethiopians have to get passports cleared, visas. And you're a rebel, you can't have your passport running around with everybody, Tom and Dick Harry. You get my point? So, Miriam, the obstacles seem to be opening up. That's why I brought this topic. I want to thank all of you. Murti has told you, I don't see initially, this is a trial. Let's just try.
He's cautiously optimistic. I believe so.
I am not even optimistic. I am really, I am dead right that it will not take off. From the letter, I know my people of Tigray inside and out. They are my friends for a long time. That letter has already doubted the process. Okay? And where you find the Ethiopian main government agreeing very fast, the Tigrayans will agree last. So the Ethiopians were the first one to say, yeah, now we go. Perhaps His Excellency...
Dr. Matsanga, why don't you think the negotiation can't be held in Nairobi? Why do the Ethiopian government refuses to come to Nairobi? I have always asked that question. Why do they have to refuse? Today, the new president is in Finfinne, in Addis, you know. Addis Ababa, he is in Addis Ababa, you know, the original name for Addis Ababa was Finfinne anyway. Look, he is there now for, to consult with Abiy Ahmed. So what is the problem if the negotiation is being held in Nairobi, even in Nairobi? I don't see why they refuse. The Ethiopian government's refusal of the negotiation to be held in Nairobi in Kenya is another thing, because you have a good neighbor, you have a stable government, a stable country with all necessary institutions. So why do we even have to go all the way to South Africa or even Tanzania? Why not be in Nairobi in Kenya? I'm always asking this question.
Very well, thank you so much.
You see, I told you that I am like the giraffe. The giraffe, which is the symbol of the Tanzanian people. Isn't it so, Tony? Tinga. Is it Tinga?
Trigger.
I am the trigger. I'm the trigger.
And see far.
I see far. I've seen this. These are the obstacles. And if the mediators don't get enough advice from people, we might run around while people are needing humanitarian assistance. They are dying. They need medicine. They need water. They need food. They need everything. Merit has raised the question, Nairobi, if there was a worry that Kenyatta was from Kenya, now there is a change of government in Kenya. Why can't they come to Nairobi? And perhaps that is what His Excellency Dr. William Ruto will tell them today. They can facilitate a good climate where there are no visa restrictions. South Africa has never succeeded in making any peace process in Africa work. Never. The South Sudan, you saw it collapsed. Congo, we had to Sun City, it collapsed. We spent a lot of time there. We even started having blows. Delegates fighting, exchanging bottles, running around. You had to take a cover. You see, they have never hosted a successful peace process. Anyhow, the obstacles remain majorly. 1, humanitarian catastrophe. 2, the countries that are supporting both sides must be named. 3, the involvement of the ICC. Too early. The ICC and the reports that are coming out now could make one side not come on table fully. We should have waited. And 4 now, the venue. And 5, there are 4 original ones, medium that I made. And perhaps international money to support the peace process. African Union has taken long to hold this conference because they didn't have the money. They needed another foreign country to sponsor the peace process. And perhaps that's why South Africa came up and said, we can pay for the tickets and accommodation and the rest of the things. Africa needs those things. And if Africa does not get those things, then we shall continue to have our continent suffering and suffering and suffering and suffering and suffering forever. Thank you very much. My comrades, thank you for today, Saturday. We meet again next Tuesday when we have Matsanga Africa Perspective, and we shall be touching on a new topic that will come over to you. Thank you very much for this one. Thank you, Dr. Olusegun Ajao.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Murit Oromo. My dear brother Oromo, and thank you very much, Chawishi.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Tony
Thank you
in
so much.
Tanzania, Muruti in Nairobi, Olusegun in Nigeria, and Miriam in Nairobi. I am Dr. David Matsanga in London. I yield the microphone to Miriam. Thank you.
Thank you so
All
much.
right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.